Today I will be showing you the best endgame PvE support build in Division 2. Here we have the Amplifier. As you can see, this build is controlling the room currently. Those of you who already have status builds, it's an amazing build to have. Swap out your fire launcher for foam and your stinger hives for the fire sticky. This build will completely halt the movement of these elites and bosses for around 12 seconds, making this heroic with 3 directives easy work with random matchmaking groups. For our gear, we want all skill tier and as much status effects and skill haste as we can get. All the mod slots are comprised of skill haste. The build will be completely focused on status effects, so my specialization choice will be survivalist for the 10% bonus damage to targets with status effects applied. The crossbow is also good to use on chungas. Our skills are riot foam and fire sticky. Mods are ensnare duration and skill haste for foam and duration and damage for fire sticky. Our primary weapon of choice is the Scorpio. Looking at Septic Shock, not only does it apply poison, disorient, and shock, it applies a 20% additional damage from all sources debuff on a single target with 7 shots hit. One thing to keep in mind is that status applied with the Scorpio will chain with the indirect transmission from Eclipse Protocol, but it will not have increased duration from your status effect attributes. The main reason I'm using this is because of the 20% debuff on a single target. Our role is team damage amplification / support. Our second weapon is a hidden gem, the Everlasting Gaze from the DZ. Headshots grant 50% status effect damage and duration to the next status effect you apply with a 16-second cooldown. If you do not have this named weapon, you can use normal perpetuation on a different weapon with 20-second cooldown. The C79 is used so I have a zoom sight when I want, and the rest are to increase the accuracy and stability of the rifle. The perpetuation talent can trigger on skill use, and it can also trigger on indirect transmission from the Eclipse Protocol, but the talent does not apply more damage and duration when the Eclipse Protocol indirect transmission triggers the buff. The buff will only apply on the initial skill use and carry over to the indirect transmission chain. For your pistol, you can use whatever suits you. On to the vial. Toxic Delivery status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. Total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage and increased by your status effect attributes. Vial's Toxic Delivery, on the other hand, acts as a status effect also, with a locked duration of 10 seconds. It will only gain increased damage on the initial application of perpetuation. One more time. Its damage will be buffed from perpetuation, but it does not carry over when indirect transmission chains to other enemies. Vial is a perfect fit for what we are doing here. That extra damage over time works perfect with the build. Here is the backbone of our build. We are using Eclipse Protocol mainly for the indirect transmission. The Gearset gives us 15% status effects, 15% skill haste, 30% hazard protection, and indirect transmission, which your status effects now spread on kill to all enemies within 10 meters and refreshes 50% of the duration. We also want that duration to last as long as it can. So we are using the chest piece, which increases the indirect transmission range from 10 to 15 meters and refresh percentage from 50% to 75%, which is massive. This works insanely well with any mission environment and has been my go-to build for running legendaries when the guys and I farm for bighorns. The only difference whenever you run legendary is that you use EMP instead of sticky. Every piece of Eclipse is rolled with maximum status effects. Onto our backpack. Now, we could be using China to increase Vial's damage, but I would rather have the foam come back faster, so I am using Hana Yu for the 10% skill haste from the brand set bonus. The talent we are using is opportunistic. Enemies you hit with shotguns and marksman rifles amplifies the damage they take by 10% from all sources. I threw this in there so we can provide maximum debuffs. This will work extremely well when we are using the Scorpio, so there will be situations where we can apply a 10% amplified damage from Opportunistic, 10% bonus damage from Survivalist Tactical Link, and 20% additional damage from the Scorpio, all to one target. Now, how to use the build: you will want to be aiming the foam at the ground most of the time and aiming for the body when they are behind cover. First, you foam a single enemy or a group, and then you use your fire sticky on the lowest health target, typically the red bar, so when the enemy dies, the chain reaction from indirect transmission starts, which applies fire, foam, toxic delivery, and any other status effect applied. You will be applying the perpetuation talent when you can, and using the Scorpio most of the time to keep the debuffs applied. Yes, you may not be doing insane damage, but if you like the support role, this will lock everything down and make your team's life easier. The only time that you should be changing your skills is anytime you run into Black Tusk, especially on Legendary. You do not want to be using the Fire Sticky, you want to be using EMP. And it will keep the dogs down, it will keep the drones down constantly. Why should you use this build? This build will completely change the game when it comes to team efficiency. It will increase the damage output of every person in your group and simultaneously trivialize endgame farming. The enemies will be ensnared from the foam for around 13 seconds, while your own personal damage over time buff from the vial chews away at their health. This immediately stops them from running around taking cover and increases your team's weapon and skill accuracy by a huge margin. You will also be applying the debuffs, which increase the single target damage massively from all sources, which further increases your team damage output. I'll say this: if you make this build, you will be surprised at how fast it speeds up your mission clears while farming, especially with random people. It is my go-to when I queue up for matchmaking, and I know that not everyone has the best build and the best accuracy. The Amplifier, previously called the Nutbuster 3.0, will mitigate matchmaking struggles and turn any random group into a great group. As someone who has put 2,000 plus hours into this game, if you're a new player or a returning player, this is a great addition to your build collection. Please make this. Try it out, it's not that hard to make since it's a Gearset. Thank you for dropping by. If you enjoyed the video, hit the respective buttons down below. It's been a pleasure. Chungus out.